Welcome back to part 2 of episode 7 here of Just Ballin' with JB. This is Jordan Bradford, and I'm here with Jeff Beck. And today's episode is brought to you by D. Oliver Design. For all your commercial graphic design needs, visit doliverdesign.com. All right, welcome back to part 2 here. We're going to go ahead and do a little fantasy football review, as we always do at the start of part 2. I didn't mean to rhyme that. But why don't we talk about Jeff's team first? Last week, I said they were slumping, and this week it's official. Jeff has now fallen to 4-3. I believe that makes 3 losses in a row now. Is that right, Jeff?
Well, it's right that 3 losses in a row. It's not right that I'm officially slumping, and I don't know who approved that on the transcript here, but no, I'm not officially slumping anything. I have been a victim of some terrible scheduling issues that have gone on. But honestly, it is what it is. I'm not going to make excuses for it. What I'm going to say is just how I feel about where I'm at. It's frustrating. You start 4-0 and you lose 3 straight. You're obviously not anticipating that. So, yeah, it's frustrating. I mean, I lost one game by 2 points. Lose one by 5-7. This last one, I did end up getting beat pretty good in that last game that ended up happening. But the last 2 weeks, I would have beat every single person in our league except the 2 people that I had to face each week. So, a silver lining with that. Still in 3rd place overall. So, it's not like 3 losses has put me down out of playoff contention or further than that. Obviously, we need to get back on track, but still in 3rd place. The way I looked at it, we had a guy last year, Wally was, I don't know what he started, 8-0, 9-0, 10-0, I don't know what he was. He was nice winning streak to start the year. Everybody in the league knew this is not the best team in the league. So he was kind of, in my opinion, the opposite. He was facing weak competition, getting wins, and I look at it as I'm maybe doing the exact opposite of that. A good team facing the toughest competition the last couple of weeks. You lose them shortly. At the end of the day, you got to make it into the playoffs. So the record has to be good enough to get there. That is an obvious thing. Getting a bye would be excellent. But I'd rather be someone who comes in with whatever, a 10-3 record versus a 13-0, but your trash record. So, yeah, I'm not down on the team. Every loss in a row is frustrating. I'm feeling like we'll get a bounce back here, get to 5-3, get back on the right track. And, the biggest positive and obviously indication that my team is much better than a lot of the other 4-3 teams in the league is I have yet to shotgun a beer. So,
yeah.
Not everyone can say that.
Speaking of, that's on my to-do list now again this week. So for the listeners, I lost, obviously. And not only did I lose, but I was the lowest scoring team of the week. And in an epic Monday night match, my opponent and I, Mikey, we were duking it out for lowest score. So it was basically going to be whoever lost that game was the lowest scoring.
How unfair to be in that game.
Yeah, but it came down to the wire. I mean, it was the difference of, a win versus having to shotgun a beer. So I'm not going to do it on the air this time, but I will be sending out a video here prior to Thursday Night Football because I'm an on-time person. So expect that
Hold you to it.
coming up shortly. But all right, well, let's get into real football now that we're done in fantasy land. And I think the game that I think was maybe the most interesting game of the weekend, certainly maybe one of the most exciting games, was Lions-Vikings. Battle at the top of the NFC North, which just continues to look fantastic, by the way. Best division in football. I don't think it's really debatable at this point.
No.
But Lions looked awesome. They won the game, came back in a game that, was kind of back and forth on the road against an undefeated Minnesota team. What do we think about the Lions right now?
Well, everyone's known what we've thought about them. It's been a few weeks since we did our power rankings at the time. And even when Minnesota was undefeated, I think we both agreed, or I know I had them above them. I think either way, they were kind of right there, but I think we were both okay with them being higher. I definitely felt they were better than the Vikings. So, Yeah, I mean, a lot more of kind of what you come to expect from him. I think the only real surprise from what I saw is, Aiden Hutchinson being out and that defense still showing up and not really being, a huge downside. I'm sure there will be games and there will be situations where they feel that a little bit. It didn't appear like they did. Maybe a little bit of that kind of juice, everybody filling in for him, kind of making up for playing for him. So we'll see. There will probably be a game or two that comes up where you realize him not being there is a bigger deal. We'll see if they bring anybody in, whether it's Max Crosby type play. There's been some talk. We'll see if they do anything like that. But I think the defense has been looking better from the beginning of the year. Again, it's one of those toss ups. The Ravens are kind of in the same boat with it. I think the Baltimore and Lions have like the number 1 and 2 offense. It's going to just kind of bring down the defense a little bit automatically. You're scoring a little bit quicker. You're putting up a lot of points. There's more possessions. I think that's going to bring down your defensive stats regardless. But I think they've been looking better. But offensively, I mean, that's really the spot to put it. I mean, in a league right now where offense has not looked all that stellar, there's maybe maybe a handful of offenses that I think we would all say that's a really good offense. Can't say it about the Chiefs right now. You can't say it about a lot of teams that are out there. That offense is just incredible. I mean, weapons galore in every position. I mean, 2 running backs that have very different styles and do different things. And, they don't take away from each other. They both add to it. The receivers are great. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson. Is it Jameson? Yeah, from Alabama. I mean,
Yeah,
speed.
Jamison Williams.
Yes, speed guy on the outside. I mean, they have a lot going on. Tight end. I mean, you name it. Jared Goff is looking incredible right now. I'm sure you'll touch on him a little bit more, but I just think that offense is, one of the best offenses. I love Baltimore's offense. We had them high in the rankings as well. I love that they run the ball a lot. Obviously, Derrick Henry's been incredible, and Lamar is just dynamic. But I think the Detroit can do different things better than Baltimore can do it. I think they can play different games, do different things, keep the defense off balance better than anybody else. So I love that. I think the defense is picking up. I think at this point they could be the NFC team. I guess I haven't thought through it, enough to say that for sure. But I mean, they got to be up there, 1, 2, 3. I mean, that's their spot to hold. So they're looking really good right now. Minnesota, I don't know. Like I said, they just still seem to be a team that I'm a little indifferent about. Great record. They held their own, obviously. Good game. I feel like I still need to see a little bit more. Detroit's now have a little history with last year. They got a little bit of that edge to me personally.
Yeah, I mean, to touch on the rushing, right? So the Lions have a very underrated rushing game, I think. I don't think people are talking about it enough. And I know a lot of people are aware that they run the ball pretty well, but they've got a 2-headed monster with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, right? And like you said, they kind of do a little different stuff, but they both do some stuff really well the same. They both initiate contact. They don't shy away from it. They're pretty tough and physical, just in different styles. And so that's wearing on a defense when, they sub in a running back and it's not some shifty guy, but it's a shifty guy who also is going to run right through you if he has to. And so that tackling is just going to be tough all game long. So the stats that really stood out to me on the Lions offense right now is if you just take the rushing yards or the rushing stats for Montgomery and Gibbs, combined, they have rushed for 846 yards. To compare that to the NFL's leading rusher and who everybody has been, drooling all over, Derrick Henry, has 873 yards. Obviously, 2 things there. Derrick Henry having a phenomenal season. But the other thing that I think is going unnoticed is that the Lions' 2-headed rushing attack is just as good as Derrick Henry. And those 2 have combined for 11 rushing touchdowns to Derrick Henry's 8. There's an argument to be made that the Lions' rushing attack is better than the Ravens, even though, they're not getting that much credit. And I think that's really going under the radar and is a recipe for success especially when you combine that with the fact, and I think a lot of people have heard this stat by now, but in the last 4 games, the Lions offense has 18 touchdowns and Jared Goff has only 15 incomplete passes, including a perfect game, which is insane. So when you're throwing the ball well and you're not making mistakes and you're getting the ball to your playmakers and then you run the ball the way you do, it's very, very impressive. I think the Lions are the best team in football right now. Now,
Yeah.
would they beat the Chiefs if they played the Super Bowl right now? I kind of think so. We'll see what that looks like at the end of the season when they actually play the Super Bowl. But I think right now the Lions are the best team in football. And I say that as a Bears fan, I don't really want to see the Lions be the best team in football, especially when this isn't an old team. This is a young team that is probably going to be good for the next few years at least.
Yeah. No, I think, I mean, we keep mentioning the Ravens, both of us, and, we didn't even talk about this beforehand, but I just think that's like the best comp. I mean, again, the offenses are top in the league, I think, in points and yardage. Their rushing offense specifically is up there at the top. Their defenses, again, are middle of the pack, a little bit higher than that, maybe like top 10 or right around the 10th spot. So, I mean, they're good, but they're not excellent. So I just feel like they're a very good comp. When I look at them, I mean, I think to me, the couple things that stand out in comparison to those two, at least, I think Lamar Jackson obviously has a ceiling that Goff maybe can't get to. I know that sounds weird when he just said, I think the record for highest pass rating in 3-game stretch in NFL history, like 148 or something, whatever the heck it's at. Sounds crazy, but you know what I mean. I think what makes Goff great is that he plays very simple and consistent. You can't go 18 of 18 in a game or whatever he's been if you're taking some serious risk and some serious, troubling plays to get to that spot. So I think that's kind of the difference between them. I think Goff's going to play a little more consistent, a little more simple. Lamar does have this ceiling that no quarterbacks, I mean, quite honestly, can really get to. I mean, even Mahomes, I think if Lamar is on his absolute best day he's ever had, he's just going to be able to do a little more dynamic stuff. I mean, you probably put Mahomes right up there with him. So that's an interesting thing. But I like what you brought up about the running backs because, yeah, of course, Derrick Henry is going to get all this praise because it's one man doing it, and he deserves all of it, obviously. But because nowadays, like, the running back by committee, we don't even say that anymore because it's just so typical that teams are running 2 backs pretty consistently. That's pretty much normal now. That for a while was like running back by committee. It's not just one, it was kind of a new element. I think people aren't talking about it nearly as much, to your point. What I also love about the Lions, maybe even a little bit more than the Ravens, which not anything against the Ravens, I just think the team vibes and stuff. You talk about Philly and kind of where are they at, and is the coach. I mean, you watch, they're just putting Dan Campbell's his team meetings after his speeches after the game every time now. The dude's electric, and everybody's on board with it. I mean, he could break down and cry at any moment in like a positive way that everybody loves. Everybody's shouting out each other when they're doing stuff. Montgomery and Gibbs come out and ask if they can be called, was it Sonic and Knuckles is their nickname? Like,
yeah,
asking for a name. Like, they're gelling. There is like zero bit of someone's better than like any animosity with any of that. And I agree. I don't think the Ravens have much of that. So again, I'm not saying anything bad about the Ravens. I just think the Lions feels to be like over the top good. Like everything about it is trending. Like these guys are on the same page. They're trying to do the same thing. So again, to me, I like a lot about what's going on in there. I wouldn't be upset about putting them as the number 1 team. Again, that Aiden Hutchinson injury, curious to see if that does come up here in a couple of the games, as they, kind of wind down the season. But I like where they're at. They do look really good.
Yeah, I think they're going to go all in, and I think they're going to trade for somebody. Now, Max Crosby's been the name that's been thrown out a lot, and obviously I don't think the Raiders are going to try and hang on to him. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense. You've got an asset with a lot of value right now, like offload it while you
at this point, what are you keeping it for? Yeah.
Yeah. But it doesn't have to be Max Crosby. It could be another pass rusher type. But I think as good as they are, they got to find the right fit. And, I think from all I know of Max Crosby, I think he'd probably be a pretty good fit on that Detroit Lions team, because Max definitely seems like he's a team vibes guy. And as you said, like, they've got team vibes better than no other team. Like, they're the best right now in the NFL. So I think Max would fit great on that team. I actually think he's a much better fit than, like, people have talked about, like, Myles Garrett. Like, I think Myles
I was
Garrett's
about to say
probably a
that.
better player, but, I just don't know that the vibes are the same with him. Like, great player, probably better than Max. Is better than Max, but Max is going to fit better, and he's going to provide you what you need, which is a pass rush.
It's funny you say that, because I was thinking of his name as well. Just going to throw it out there and see your thoughts on it. I actually heard him tied to possibly the Bears somehow. And again, you never know how much steam these things actually have. But it's funny you say that, because I would say I think the Bears have really good vibes. I mean, offensively, maybe there were some issues early on. Just DJ Moore not getting some passes and new coordinate. Eberflus, whatever, just some different things. Nothing terrible, but that has gotten a lot better. I feel good about the team. The defense has been the strong point all year. So, you have to believe the vibes are decent. But to your point, I would probably agree with that. I think Crosby would be like a better fit with Detroit just as far as those vibes. But I also think, not that he'd be a better fit, but I think Garrett would be like a fine fit with the Bears as well. Like, I don't know how to describe that and like why the vibes would be different, but I do feel like he would insert himself with the Bears and be perfectly fine. Whereas, going to Detroit, maybe it wouldn't be as fine. I don't know why I even say that, what the feeling is of it. But to me, yeah, he's obviously a great player, probably the best at that position right now. If either one of those teams can lock that down, either player for either team, I mean, those could be some huge additions. And those are two teams that have to be looking at selling. I mean, unless their Browns are feeling good on Jameis Winston all of a sudden, and they're like, we could make a run here. That's
The
your only
Browns shouldn't feel good about anything. And honestly,
Jameis looked great.
They should trade Myles Garrett just to be nice, just to stop forcing him to have to defend Deshaun and do all that. But I do think sneaky potential topic in football here coming up is the competition for the two top pass rushers, because whoever gets the first guy, regardless of who it is going to force the other team to end up having to overpay, right? So as an example, let's say the Bears go out and get Myles Garrett. And I don't know what it's going to take, but let's say they trade for him. If the Lions now want Max Crosby, they're probably going to have to pay a higher price, because there's going to be one less guy on the market, and the other guy just went for a haul of some sort. So the next, it's just like contracts in the NFL. The next guy up for a contract gets paid a little bit better than the prior guys. It's just how it works. So I think the Bears and the Lions might need to, both teams probably have to sit down and decide, how much do we want to push our chips in this year? I think that that's going to lead the Bears to maybe passing on a pass rusher, because it's Caleb Williams' rookie year. I think that's the wise thing to do.
Well, it's funny you mentioned him. I was going to say the potential second sneaky topic, if and when either of those or one of those things happen, is Jared Goff MVP candidate? Is Caleb Williams going to overtake Rookie of the Year from Jaden Daniels? I think either one of those guys on either team is only going to make that more likely, right? Your defense stepping up that. I mean, the Bears defense is already great. They've been keeping them in there. But like I said, Detroit's has not been excellent. Again, they've been fine. But I think you add that in, especially as a pass rusher, I mean, more potential sacks, fumbles, strip sacks that can happen, deflected balls, pick. I mean, just think about it. You could end up putting yourself in some better positions offensively. All of a sudden, it's one pass and you're in the end zone versus having to do 100, so maybe some yards could be cut off. But you know what I mean? I think always having a better defense is going to make your offense look better. So if either one of those teams and or both get them, Goff could really step up. He's already in the MVP conversation, I believe, but could really continue on the path that he's on if the defense takes some pressure off. And Caleb, we've already seen him kind of take the next step, I would say. Again, not the best competition, but he's moving in that right direction. The defense has held their own. They somehow could add Myles Garrett to that defense. I mean, that could make things a heck of a lot easier on the offense. So either one or both of those could start to happen if those deals go down.
Yeah, I mean, the trade deadline's got to be coming up here soon. I want to
Did
say
they
it.
say 2 weeks? I thought I still had 2 weeks today.
Yeah, I think the trade deadline is week 9, and we're technically entering week 8. So we've got this week and next week, I believe.
That makes sense. So 2 weeks, yeah.
So I think next week's games are going to probably tell us a lot. If the Bears come out and they beat the Commanders and they do it, pretty convincingly with or without, Jaden Daniels, I think the Bears might be tempted at least, and rightly so. I mean, they might be tempted to go all in, and they're not going all in just for this year because they have the quarterback on a rookie contract. They've got a lot of weapons. Myles Garrett's, and I don't think he has an expiring contract, so you're likely going to get him for a couple years. And on top of it, Myles Garrett's, still got plenty left in the tank. It's not like this is his last year, but they're going to be tempted to go all in. And the Lions obviously have plenty of reasons to go all in because I think for them, it's just if we go all in, we've got to hone in on who the right guy is or right guys if they end up getting maybe multiple positions potentially. Although they don't really have a lot of needs, to be honest. They have done a very good job constructing that roster. So yeah,
Maybe another
NFC
good
North.
topic, ranking all-in teams and how well they went all in. The Cowboys were all in.
Last.
What is your definition of all in? The Ravens, are they going all in with Derrick Henry? Or like, okay, now that ended up being good. People were hesitant. But you just hear that term thrown around a lot. And, I mean, the Niners, we got to go all in on Brock / you know what I mean? And obviously injuries this year. But that could be a fun one to touch on, teams going all in and what they should do, what they shouldn't do, what they have done.
Well, yeah. I mean, speaking of all in, who's always all in? Russell Wilson.
Steelers.
And the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, I mean, what a showing. I mean, we expected, that Russ would probably look like Denver Russ, and he did for a while in the game. And then all of a sudden, he turned it on, and they played really well. They had their best performance of the season on the offensive side of the football so far against the defense that a lot of people are high on. What do we think about this Steelers win with Russ being the quarterback? Does it maybe raise their ceiling as a team?
Yeah, I think at this point it definitely does. I mean, we'll have to start showing flashbacks from week 1 of me, popping on the Steelers and saying this is the team to beat. My thought in that was partly that Justin Fields was going to get on this role and be this quarterback, and that they don't need to look at Russ. There's no competition and move forward with that. So, I mean, you could say I was a little off on that since because Russ came up. But we talked about last week, and like I said, I read somewhere, hey, if Russ comes in and he plays great, he's going to better the team. He's going to be better than Fields, right? If he's able to come in and keep the position, he's going to be better. So the team's going to be better. And if he comes in and lays an egg, then you go right back to Justin Fields. And our conversation was just simply, would that mess up team morale a little bit? That's kind of really your only potential downfall. And I think Tomlin's a good enough coach that he could express that. Hey, this is the situation where we had to at least see all sides of it. This is not about Justin, and watching everything going into that. Justin answered every question correctly. Russ was not, typical Russ of, old hate for most people. I mean, everything just seemed to be, handled really well in that situation. He got off to a really slow start. He was looking ugly. I mean, couldn't even complete like screen pass and stuff, little flat routes, but he did pick it up. And I think the most noticeable stuff with it is, and what I think is really cool, and this again is just my kind of thought process with it, is he's aging. He has a lot of stuff that Justin Fields doesn't have, and vice versa. He's got the experience. He has the Super Bowl. He has kind of the command of what he's doing that Justin Fields just really hasn't totally gotten a chance to develop yet. He throws a better long ball. They talked about it on the broadcast nonstop. It was just like, look at that arc on that. Look how he just drops it in up into the top. And, it appeared to be pretty accurate. He was doing that a lot. How many balls was he throwing up to Pickens? And, I mean, a few of them, a little bit of luck, also went to show how talented Pickens is. I'm not saying he's a top receiver in the league, but he clearly has a lot of talent. And they were able to show that, which you haven't seen a lot of that. I know because he's on my fantasy team, and he wasn't putting up huge numbers early, maybe a game or two, but he was able to make some big plays because Russ can throw the ball out there like Fields just does it differently. On the same token, Justin Fields is athletic. He's younger. He can move around in the pocket. He can get out and get first downs that Russ probably can't do. So I think Fields handled it really well, very maturely. I think Russ is going to be able to come in. He started to look better, do what he's really good at. I think inevitably things are going to come up. Whether hopefully it's no serious injuries, but I mean, if Russ tweaks a little hammy, don't force it. Sit him down. Let Justin Fields come in. We know he knows he's been able to learn behind him. We've seen what he can do. Give defenses a little different look. All right, then get Russ back in there, or vice versa. Justin Fields gets hurt running for a first down and gets knocked out. Russ has time. Like, they're actually going to have a good balance. And I'm going to say that from the beginning of the year, saying it's the worst quarterback situation in the league to maybe the best somehow, which would be absolutely shocking. For Russ, after getting fired from Denver, them having to pay as much as they're paying to have him leave the team, Justin Fields wasn't that terrible, but it's like, hey, we're definitely taking this new guy versus paying you. Like, you can go ahead and move on. Neither of them were great endings for either of those players. And all of a sudden, I mean, with everything else that the team has going on, those two could be, again, I don't see games where it's just like they're going 50 and doing half and half. Like, I don't think that's happening. But I just think, again, if something happens, someone gets, the wind knocked out, you'll have two guys that you can jump in there and do some things. Maybe they end up running some like red zone packages for Justin Fields, some Wildcat stuff to mix things up, like just here and there. But I think Russ with that team, that coaching staff is going to be a little bit better than what any of us would have thought. And I think we already saw from Justin Fields, very serviceable. And if he's going to be a pro and be okay with sitting behind Russ, learning and doing some of that, I think they're in really, really good shape to do some good stuff over there for sure.
Yeah, I mean, kudos to Mike Tomlin here in this case. I think he's taken a lot of heat recently, and some deservedly so. I think there's been a lot of accolades put on him as a head coach, and it's been a long time since he's won the one Super Bowl that he's won. But he clearly resonates with guys in the locker room really well. In different stages of life, different, backgrounds, everything. And so I think everyone on the outside thought, how is this supposed to work? Like, you've got Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, both of which are probably good enough to start on at least, a few teams in the NFL. Looking at you, Tennessee. I think, They took Mason Rudolph now to play, which the Steelers didn't want him either. So, but Mike Tomlin, good job here. I think if Russ keeps playing the way he played, I think they're going to have a really good team. But, we'll have to see. I think this is probably the outcome that probably was going to happen. It just so happened that Russ got hurt prior to the start of the season. I think he's probably a better quarterback than Justin Fields. Like, I really like Justin Fields. A lot of people like him. It's a really interesting case study too in football. Like, he has not been a very successful NFL quarterback, and yet everybody likes him and roots for him. That's very uncommon. Like, you look at Trevor Lawrence. He has not done great, not been as successful. And pretty much nobody likes him, it seems. Just because he's losing, basically. And Justin Fields,
you mentioned Trevor Lawrence, because I actually just wrote his name down when you were talking about Tomlin, even deservedly so, getting some heat on some of the stuff. It's appeared to be a bit of a bold decision. I think the rationale makes a lot of sense than a normal person. We thought he had won the job early on. He got hurt. We feel like we have to give him that opportunity, or we thought we were going to explore opportunities, however you want to word it. I think it was Danny Parkinson we talked about last week, really getting on him. And it's like, okay, so he's, gets 9 wins, gets 8 wins, but what's he done since the Super Bowl? What I think people don't always understand and take into account is the expectations are what is the difference. We're in the finance world. You could have Apple come out with their, earnings for the end of the quarter, and they miss by what appears to be a minuscule fraction, and the stock drops because it's based on what people expected. They expected that you were going to hit a certain earnings per share, and you missed it. So what indication is that to us? It's not, oh, you just barely missed it, no big deal. It's saying, well, there's something clearly wrong if you guys weren't able to hit the expectations that we thought. And all I can say is when you look at Tomlin, what have the expectations been since Ben Roethlisberger left? And now if you're going to put some blame on him for not having another quarterback and somebody ready to go for that, that's fair. I don't know exactly how their organization works and who's fully in charge of all that, but that's fair to get a little criticism for that. But the reason why he's a good coach, the reason why you can't sit there and give him the heat that people are trying to do is because what have the expectations been? And what has he done? What were the expectations last year? Nobody sat there and thought this is a playoff team. Nobody thought they were going to go to the Super Bowl. So you take that team and you go to the playoffs and you do what you do. That's impressive. I understand it's been multiple years now of just getting to the playoffs and not doing anything more. But the expectation of even getting to the playoffs was not there. So to do what you did, you exceeded the expectations of what people thought. And the difference, and why I wrote down like Trevor Lawrence, you saw what Trevor Lawrence is supposed to be, this top-notch quarterback. Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl, and then we fill it with weapons. We got ETN, we bring in Kirk, we got these different receivers. We're expecting this team to do well based on what we had seen, and then all of a sudden you flop. That's where you deserve to catch heat. Mike McCarthy, you won a Super Bowl, okay, great. Now Dallas is winning 12 wins a year consistently. The expectation is not only going to make the playoffs, obviously, but that you might actually do some damage at least one of the years, right? At least a win here or there. They haven't won a playoff game. That's the difference. You go in with 12 wins and you lose in the first round. You underperformed the expectations that everybody had for you. When you got Mason Rudolph starting and you're not even supposed to have 5 wins, you end up with 9, you get in the playoffs, you lose first round. I don't know how people are going to sit there and fault him for that. To me, that like I said, I happened to write down Trevor Lawrence when you said that, because I think that's the difference. Whether, again, that's on him for not replacing Ben Roethlisberger or not, I don't know that to be true or not. But I just think every year he's coming in and saying, based on what we have, it's like Pat Mahomes, like, when you're sitting there watching these wins, you're watching the terrible receiver play, and yet he's figuring it out, and it's even that much more impressive because no one's expecting that to happen. And I think that's what Tomlin's done. He's been able to figure that out. He's been able to rally guys behind him. He's been able to keep a consistent defense. And I mean, I think they're doing as much as they can with the offense. To your point, Justin Fields hasn't done a whole lot to be really loved as much as he is. I think people think he's a really good guy, which, I do think he deserves that. But talent-wise, they're not your prototypical quarterbacks at this stage. And if they can figure out ways to win, they deserve some credit.
Yeah, and you do got to think, that Pittsburgh fan base, and I'm sure the owners are kind of similar in this regard. Like, yes, I'm sure they all want to win Super Bowls, but I don't think anyone in Pittsburgh really wants to put up with the team being garbage. And that's a tough spot for Mike Tomlin, because Mike Tomlin might be sitting back thinking, look, our best course of action is to probably strip this down for a year or two, and so that we can get the right quarterback. But if you're unwilling as the owner to let your team do that, then, he's got to do what he's got to do. And I do think he enjoys, coaching a team that should have won 5 or 6 games to 9 or 10, because I think he feels like, hey, look, like, I'm getting the best out of these guys, and that's what I'm paid to do. And I do think Mike Tomlin takes a lot of pride in, like, doing a really good job in his job. So yeah, I agree. I think that's an interesting outlook that I don't think has been talked about enough. But yeah, I mean, it comes down to expectation management.
We probably don't have a whole lot of time to jump into it, but on the flip side of that game, the Steelers just came out and beat down the Jets. Got rid of Saleh, thinking that, is clearly the issue going on. I think we touched on thinking it was, ownership, thinking it was the quarterback play. They end up getting Devontae Adams as well before that. the savior. I'm not saying one game is, going to tell us exactly how that's going to go, but pretty disappointing if you're the Jets. I mean, just being where they're at, 2-5, 4 games down in a row. You fire the coach,
Well, it
thinking
wasn't
that'll
even
give you
competitive.
No, I mean, that's what I mean. It wasn't even competitive. I mean, they're starting a guy who hasn't played all year long. So you're going to try and say what? That we had a coach that he was in his second game, right? Head coach technically was in his second game. Monte
But
Adams'
he's been
first
with the
game with
team for
the
a couple
team.
of years.
Yeah, absolutely. I just mean like if you're trying to compare it, Russ hasn't played all year, and he came in, and you guys lose by 20 in your, I mean, whatever it was. That situation, I don't even know what the question is. Probably more like, is Rodgers ever going to play again after this year? I mean, assuming it goes as poorly as it appears, I just don't know what they're doing.
Why would he, like, one, why would he want to come back? But also, like, Jets fans need to be real. Why would you want to have Aaron Rodgers back? Like, they were 4-3 through 7 games last year with Zach Wilson. They're 2-5 this year. There's no reason for them to be 2-5 other than the fact that they're not any good. Their only wins are over the New England Patriots, who were quarterbacked by Jacoby Brissett, who is no longer their quarterback, and the Tennessee Titans, who were quarterbacked by Will Levis, who, shocker, no longer their quarterback. So they
He'll
can't
get
beat
another
anybody.
job.
Yeah, working for Hellman's Mayo. I'm tired of seeing that dude's commercials. Why is a backup QB on national TV commercials? But anyway, the Jets, they're not a good football team. And Aaron Rodgers is no longer a good quarterback. I just don't think he is. He is not that good on the field. And then whether it's other players' faults or not, after that game 2 weeks ago against the Bills, when he threw that game-ending pick, where he was trying to connect with Mike Williams, he threw Mike Williams under the bus immediately. Like, you just can't do that, man. Like, you're the quarterback of the team. Everybody looks to you for leadership, whether you want it or not. You're throwing one of your players under the bus. Nobody's going to be like jacked up and ready to go out and fight for. Like,
No,
I
it's just
just don't
shocking
understand.
that still happens, after being in the league as long as you have been. I mean, I understand people aren't perfect and, heat of the moment type of things, but, those interviews, the ones he's doing at least that I've seen, it's after the game, it's after the coach talks to you, it's after you shower, it's after you send some texts out. I mean, you have plenty of time to process information. And I mean, he can come out later on McAfee or whatever, and say, I wasn't calling him out. We'd already talked about blah, 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 this and that. But like, it's the perception, unfortunately, that people are going to have with it. And there's just no way, because people in Mike Williams' circle are going to be sitting there being like, what's the dude's problem? Like, why would he call you out like that in front of people? Like, it doesn't matter if Aaron and Mike have this understanding of how that's going to go and what he meant by it. Other people are saying things, and that's usually the problem. I mean, Aaron Rodgers came out today. He was like, the first thing we got to do is stop listening to the media. So it's like, well, you're clearly hearing all this stuff, and you're understanding that we are taking things in certain ways because of what we see. Whether you didn't chest bump Salah or whatever on the game and it was normal and it was 2 scores and whatever you want to say, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, it didn't look good to us. And then what ended up happening? He got fired. So, it's hard to even fault us for thinking the things that we think. But after being in the league as long as he has been, you'd think he would just figure that stuff out. And you wonder if, it is a little more calculated and it's saying, well, if I can say that, show somebody I'm that upset, then we can get Devontae, and even if it's for him just playing with the guys he likes, I don't know. I mean, maybe I can't imagine he's at that spot in his career, but at this point it does appear like, give me the guys I like and I played with. Let me go out with having fun. I don't know. I mean, it's not a
I
good.
just don't know how it's fun for anybody in the Jets organization or fan base right now. Like, this is exactly what I thought they were going to get with Aaron Rodgers, was a guy who was no longer that same quarterback and who had become kind of a jerk and just like had evolved into this dude who just doesn't care about anybody else's opinions. He's going to say whatever he wants to say, and he's never going to own up to anything, right? Instead of being like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have said it that way. Like, I understand why it came off that way. Like, that's my bad. I should know better than to put him in that position, with my words. He instead is like blaming everybody else for taking it the wrong way, which is what he always does.
The problem is he's probably been off that ayahuasca too long and he's getting like edgy, like he needs that release,
He's
but
got the itch.
he probably can't use during the season. So
Got that Waska itch, they call it.
ugly
Yeah.
stuff, ugly
So,
stuff. Let's talk about some good games to watch.
yeah. Let's talk the games of the coming week. So, well, in college, we've got, really there's a couple good games out there, but I think the one I'd circle is, Saturday night LSU versus Texas A&M. It's a battle of ranked opponents. Both teams only are coming in with only one loss. Both teams lost their first game of the season and have since righted the ship, gotten better. LSU looks really good, and Texas A&M has looked much improved. There's a high likelihood that the winner of that game goes to the SEC championship because of the schedule, especially if it's Texas A&M, because A&M has neither team has an SEC loss yet. So, they've both got a very good chance of getting to the SEC. So, 6:30 p.m. on ABC, that's Central Time on Saturday.
Yeah, anything in the SEC can be fairly exciting. A lot of good teams and a lot of implications there for them. So, yeah, it's a good one. NFL, my top game that I'm going to watch, and I think we touched on a little bit earlier, Eagles Bengals. I'm really excited for that one. Yeah, I think just in general, it's going to be a good game. I know the Bengals are better than their record has suggested. My point in counting them out is purely based on the losses that it's no different than the Steelers. Even if the Steelers aren't quite this, 12-win team, which most of us probably don't think that they are, you already locked up 5 wins. That's already a good spot. It helps you get to the playoffs. So the Bengals are just kind of in the opposite situation. You start 2-4, whenever they started. It's just hard to stack up those wins, but I do think they're a good team. I think the defense needs a lot of improvement, but quite honestly, I mean, it should be a good matchup in that sense. The Eagles' defense has been their weak part. Again, the last two weeks has been really strong for them. Weaker opponents, but so this will be a good test. See how the Eagles' defense can stack up against the Bengals. Can the Bengals defense show something against the Eagles offense that has been looking a little bit better with A.J. Brown back, Saquon running it really well? So I think that'll be a really good game. I'm expecting two, I don't want to say fully desperate, but fairly desperate teams that are looking to get a win, get on track, prove something. I think that'll be a fun one and hopefully a close game. It's only a 2.5 spread, so
Yeah. Definitely going to be should be a very good game. Both teams have a lot to play for. I would say that the game I'm most looking forward to watch, in part as a Bears fan, of course, but I do think that Bears Commanders game is going to be really good. Even if Jaden doesn't play, which is I feel like is kind of trending that direction, just given that he's had there were injury concerns coming into the NFL about just his body type, and the way he plays. So it wouldn't shock me if just out of precaution, they sit him out this week, especially against this very difficult Bears defense. But nonetheless, the Commanders are sitting at number 2 in the NFC right now in the playoff race. And, obviously they're a good football team. I mean, they barely played with Jaden in this last game, and they won pretty decisively. Now, granted, they were playing.
comeback.
Yeah, Marcus Mariota and Cliff Kingsbury, the offensive coordinator. I mean, I don't think he's getting enough love for the work he's doing there. Bears passed up
Not
on
enough
him.
love for all the hate that he got. It's one thing if you just didn't care about him, if you're neutral, but the fact that he got so much hate, now he probably deserves a heck of a lot of love. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, so I think that's going to be a really good game, and I'm excited to see, Bears need to win because they've got to keep up with the rest of the teams in the NFC North. I mean, that's what it comes down to right now is you got to win these non-division games you've got on your schedule upcoming, because sooner or later you're going to be playing division games and you're not going to win all those. It's just this division is too difficult. and they've played 0 games in division so far. So this is a game you really got to win if you want to stay in that hunt in the most competitive division. So that's the NFL.
Again, I think we all were hoping to see Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams go at it. I saw someone said today, if he's out, it's like a lose-lose for the Bears. It's like if they win, well, Jaden Daniels didn't play, it's nothing, blah, blah, blah. If they lose and he's not in, it's like, wow, you can't even beat a team without Jaden Daniels. But I think that's exactly a situation for a team like that, not the Jets, who are 2-5, whatever the heck they're doing. The Bears, you're 4-2. You got to win these games. You don't need to listen to the outside noise. You get this win regardless. If Jaden Daniels isn't playing, you go get the win. Doesn't matter if people say it's impressive or not. You just keep stacking them. I mean, they haven't had a whole lot of impressive wins, to be honest, just as far as the talent that they've played this year. Just go out and get a win. Keep things moving along. Get ready for the division.
Absolutely. Well, the other thing to watch, and we haven't talked any baseball on the pod this week, and hardly any, since we've started, but World Series kicks off this Friday night. Yankees, Dodgers. It's got a chance to be one of the more exciting World Series in the last few years. And I know there's a lot of fans out there, baseball fans especially, who don't like the Yankees and don't like the Dodgers. But the reality is that when you have the 2 biggest markets and the 2 biggest brands in your sport meet up in the World Series, that's good for the sport. And baseball really needs this because nobody's talking baseball on a national level anymore. It's become super regionalized. You can listen to any of the top, talk shows. I would almost guarantee that during the World Series, it's going to get less than 20% of the coverage still. And that is if the show even covers baseball. So, it's important for MLB to have Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge, these 2 superstars, duking it out in the World Series. I'm not saying baseball, orchestrated this behind the scenes, but this is the best case scenario for baseball. So if you like baseball or maybe have kind of fallen off on the wayside a little bit, I would say this is the World Series to watch. Get you back into baseball a little bit, and MLB needs to continue to work on things going forward. But this is a good start, getting to see the 2 marquee franchises in the sport.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, everything you said is spot on. It's about as exciting as it could get. Some big name players, big name teams, coast to coast. Everybody in the middle can tune in. Football's not being played every single night. Basketball's on, but we know how some of the early games can go. So yeah, even I'm the first person to miss out on some of these games, but I think it's definitely worthwhile to flip it on, check it out. It should be a good one. Hopefully, it's a good competitive series. I got to go in at least 6. I don't know if it'll go 7, but I think it'll probably go 6. But I think it'll be a good one.
Yeah, 6 or 7 games would be awesome. What we don't need is a sweep either direction.
No,
that is
that would
not gonna.
I'll just tell everybody who was thinking maybe it's exciting, like, nope, never mind, never going back to this.
Well, we'll wrap up this video here with one last quick segment, and that is our lock of the week. So we might as well let's get the good out of the way first. We'll talk good and positive here first. I did snag another victory in my lock of the week. I've moved to 4-2 on the season now. Had Houston plus 2.5. I'd love to say I was never concerned, but when CJ Stroud throws for 86 yards, I start thinking this could go sideways pretty quick on me. Fortunately, the way it played out, that game-winning field goal didn't bother me one bit because, well, except as a Bears fan, it would have been nice for the Packers to lose. But didn't affect me because we got Houston at plus 2.5, and they needed it. They needed that extra half point. So this week, actually, you know what? Let's cover yours this week first, or your last week, I should say, and then we'll get into this week's.
I don't even know who I had. I had Atlanta minus 2.5 against Seahawks, right? Yeah, Seahawks. I had mentioned it last week. Just felt like one that could go totally opposite, but based on what we had seen, Seahawks were on a slide 3 in a row. Atlanta was starting to look better. It kind of started a little bit slow, talks of Penix coming into some games there and didn't happen, but they started getting it going. I think Atlanta is a good team. I think Seahawks are probably a little bit more middle of the road. Yeah, 2.5. I mean, covered by a field goal only. Thought that could be a good play, but they got absolutely smoked, I believe. I don't even remember what the final score.
Yeah,
it was like 21, something like
it
that.
was not close.
34 to 14. Yeah. I mean, yeah, 14 points against a pretty average defense at best. Not ideal. So yeah, another bad pick on my end. I gotta figure out some different strategy, I guess, to go with. So that puts me at 2-4 for the season.
Yeah. Well, this week we're gonna get this turned around, and as a duo, we're gonna go 2-0. I'm confident, and part of the reason I'm confident is I'm gonna stay right there in Atlanta. And I know Atlanta minus 2.5 wasn't the play last week, but Atlanta minus 2.5 is the play this week. They're going up against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is down Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. Both of them are going to be out, probably for extended period of time, both of them. This is a really banged up Tampa Bay team that, I think has come off of some pretty emotional losses, games they felt like they could have beat the Falcons a few weeks ago. This was a big game against Baltimore. They tried to storm back and it just wasn't enough. And then they had 2 big injuries, and Atlanta just got embarrassed by Seattle. So you've got an Atlanta team who wants to retain control of the NFC South, needs to come back from that really bad performance last week. Kirk Cousins is a professional. He's going to come out there. He's going to do business. And I think they're going to be too much for Tampa Bay by at least 2.5 points, and probably more than that.
Speed. I hope Atlanta gives you a better showing than I have. Yeah, Tampa's a lot worse than Seahawks, but no, I like that. Everything you touched on is spot on. When I first saw the line, I was like, yeah, I kind of like that. Not thinking about all the injuries that they're going through and things they got to deal with. So, yeah, Atlanta needs
that line to probably move, by the way. So, we'll try to get this out.
One to keep an eye on. Yeah. If you can keep it at 2.5 would be really nice. I think, having that field goal, being able to win by that is huge, just in case it comes a little bit closer than you think. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I like that a lot. I'm going to go, the couple that I was thinking about, I started going back and forth. I'm saying these teams that I'm high on, I'm talking about, all show long, I'm not betting on at the end. That's the problem. I'm betting on teams I'm not even thinking about. So this week we're going with the Steelers. We've been high on the Steelers all year long from day one. I don't care who's at quarterback for them. Russ, Fields, they're in a good spot. I think that the team is gelling nicely. Huge win against the Jets this past weekend. I'm not saying the Jets are a good team, but there's hype around them. There's plenty of reason to be hesitant. You have Aaron Rodgers, big quarterback, a lot of prestige around him. They pick up Devontae Adams. That's his
prestige worldwide.
That's his big sidekick. I don't know what he is now. He's still a top 5, top 10 receiver, but the guy's clearly really good. A lot of reasons to be hesitant, and they not only came in. Russ's first game started off slow. It was close. It was kind of back and forth to begin with, and they just absolutely blew him out. So I think they're getting on the roll that they need to get on. They're playing the Giants. We've talked a couple times on the show. We thought they were a little bit better than a lot of people thought they were, but at the same time, I think they're kind of at a weird spot here where they might just need to fold. You hate to say that, you hate people tanking or doing it, but it almost feels like they're kind of at that spot where they might be doing that. We talked last week again about getting off Daniel Jones and how much time and how you can do that. I think they might be considering it. They were thinking about this offseason, and it just might be the right time to do it. So it is 6.5 points, minus 6.5. A little more than I typically like to go with on a bet, but feels like one of those ones that they're they're going to come out strong and put it to them. So I like it. 1 touchdown, come out, do it. Let's get back on the winning track.
I like that one a lot because honestly, the only way I don't see that one paying out is if Russ gets benched for Justin Fields mid-game. Because if it's a really close game, then Russ is not playing well. Because I don't see the Giants playing great, and you know that they've got Justin Fields ready to go. So I'm going to guess the leash will be relatively short. If that's a one possession game there at the very end, maybe even Pittsburgh down, there's a chance Russ doesn't survive the game as the starter, of course. And if they were to lose the game, bad news for Russ. So I like the logic there on taking Pittsburgh -6.5. I feel like we've got ourselves a double lock.
If you're looking for any prop bets, I'm going Russ 3 touchdowns, 0 picks.
0 picks. Wow.
Not getting benched. He's going to be feeling it. They're gonna get on a nice little roll here. I think they're going to start.
They're definitely going to cover -6.5 if he goes.
Oh, if he does
3
that,
picks for three touchdowns, no turnovers.
Yeah.
So
that's the plan,
all right,
baby.
Well, that'll wrap this up for episode number 7 here. Thank you for listening. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and shoot us your comments and questions, and we'll do our best to answer those here on the pod. Thanks for listening.